We received many compliments, especially from our old members, Kalvnei Yisrael, community of Jewish friends. Today's Yom Yuchas, the day that we're so proud of, and that Hashem tells us that we're a kingly nation, kingly priests, and a nation of and a holy nation. We mentioned the other day in the Pirkei Avos classes that the Heilig Reb Shlomo Karliner, one of the foremost students of the Holy Baal Shem Tov, said that the worst sin a Jew could do is to forget that he's a prince, he's a Ben Melech, prince or princess. So, being Yom Yuchas, I would like to give over some of our beautiful stories, Chassidishe, that gives us so much emunah and faith in everything we should have emunah and faith in. Because Hashem loves us so much, and there are three loves that Hashem has, and that we have, and that we want to grow in so much every day. Avos Yisrael, Avos Hashem, and Avos HaTorah. Love of our people, love of the Heilig Torah that connects us with Hashem, and love of Hashem. And yes, it's still true that everything Hashem created, Hashem loves. All the peoples of the world, all the trees and animals and vegetation, and everything there is. But that doesn't take away from the special love. Over the years, how many times I've heard from Balchuvas and people wanting to become closer to Yiddishkeit. Yeah, but doesn't Hashem love the Goyim also? Of course He does. But don't you love other people also besides your children? But there's a special love between you and your children. And you and yourself. And it's good. And it's not being selfish and self-centered. Because at the right time, in the right place, everything has its place. Okay, without further ado, like they say, in preparation for receiving the Torah Mount Sinai, becoming God's special people, tomorrow is the beginning of the 3 days, Shleishos Me'Agbala. Today is Yom HaMyuchas, the day before that, the introduction to that. And in Shulchan Aruch it says today you don't say Tachnan. And the same day of the week that Yom HaMyuchas is Yom Kippur, the most special, loving day that Hashem said, I forgive you. With joy, b'simcha, Rashi says in the Chumash. So if we're standing all day and bawling, crying, we're missing the simcha. Because we follow Hashem. Hashem forgave us with simcha, so we too have to love Hashem with simcha and accept the forgiveness. So we'll start with someone who is known so much for his love of Yidden and simcha. The Heilige Kapitchen says, Rabbi Avram Yeshua Heschel was someone very special. Beginning of this century, I should say, he came here after the war, known for his love of all the Yidden and for helping people in a very special way. And so I heard from Rabbi Spiegel of Cedarhurst, like to quote who we heard it from, as we'll see later in Pirkei Avos, that it brings the redemption, it brings Mashiach closer, as we learned from Esther in the Megillah. So the Heilige Kapitchen Rebbe once, the story is with the Kapitchen Rebbe. Okay. So after the war, the American soldiers went to try to get out as many people as they can in the DP camps. And they sent a number of ships to Europe, which came in on Lower East Side of Manhattan. And they had a certain quota. And so there was one Jew him and his wife were standing there waiting to go on the ship after they lost everything in Europe, the parents, siblings, their own children, Nebuch, and they were the only ones left. And the person in charge says, okay, sir, you go on the ship. But what about my wife? We've been through so much the last years and all the slave camps and everything that we've been through. Can't she come with me? Sorry, sir. There's a quota. You could go. She'll come back. In 2 weeks, you'll meet her in America. Well, 2 weeks, 2 months, 6 months, 8 months, and he didn't even hear from her because those days communication wasn't what it is today. One day he's walking in the street on Lower East Side, and I have to tell you, the East Side, those days, even today, but then even more, everybody spoke Yiddish. Whether you were religious, not religious, everyone spoke Yiddish. So this Yid is walking on the East Side, and he meets another Jew, and he says, Reb Yid, I want to tell you something. Today I'm taking my life. I said, what? Today I'm taking my life. You don't understand what it is. I went through so much, and finally, me and my wife were left alive after everything. And here, I don't even know where she is. I haven't heard any communication. They brought me here. They don't try to find out for me. They promised 2 weeks. It's crazy. Oh, so this other person says to him, do me a favor. Go to Henry Street, the other side of the East Side, after East Broadway. There's a Jew there by the name of the Chassidishe Rebbe. Go speak to him. He says, you know what? Don't tell me about Rebbes. I saw enough burnt in the crematorium. I saw them getting burnt. And it's enough already. He said, Rabbi, do me a favor. Just go to Chassidishe Rebbe. Anyway, goes to Henry Street. The last favor he could do for someone. And he comes into Chassidishe Rebbe and he cries his heart out and tells him his story. And the Chassidishe Rebbe is sitting there and bawling together with him. In the middle, the Rebbe says to him, Reb Yid, tomorrow morning your wife's coming on the first ship. He couldn't believe it. He runs out. He couldn't sleep all night. He was so joyful. And finally he goes there, and sure enough, 7 o'clock, she walks out of the ship. The joy was like unbelievable. And like decent human beings, especially Jews, right? We have to thank someone. We have to not forget to give gratitude. They go to Henry Street, to Chassidishe Rebbe, and the Rebbe is sitting down with them, drinking l'chaim, and unbelievable. Everybody's in such a great mood, ready to say Howell. And all of a sudden, this fellow is the Rebbe, Chassidishe Rebbe. You told us about this. Chassidishe Rebbe says, yes. And I've heard on Lower East Side already that I do mifsim, I do miracles. It's not true. Chassidishe Rebbe doesn't do any miracles. So how did the Rebbe know? So he says, I didn't know. I'll tell you what happened. After you walked out, I was so broken. So broken. And I turned my eyes up to Hashem and I said, Ribono Shel Olam, you know I never said a lie in my life. Don't make me a liar. What a story to tell our children, right? Receiving of the Torah, the main thing is the children, right? Who could say that? Not me. What a lesson to learn. Next story. Since we started with Chassidishe Rebbe, we'll go to another one. We're descendants of Chassidishes for many generations, our family, my parents, grandparents, and their parents and grandparents. So the Heilige Chassidishe Rebbe Zechon Lecha once one of his preparations for Shabbos, hachana for Shabbos, right? There are people that do all kinds of things. They do all kinds of chesed. The Tomchei Shabbos, whoever remembers our Shabbos packages, good days. Today's also good. Today's better. Every day the world gets better and better. Hashem loves us so much. Hashem loves everything He created. So, Chassidishe Rebbe's mitzvah, so to say, before Shabbos was he would go visit the Bowery. Now the Bowery in Manhattan, you can't visit because it's full of drugs and whatnot. But those days it wasn't. I'll tell you a little secret. Don't tell too many people. Plenty of Jews, Nebuch, that went through the Holocaust and saw their mothers and their children slaughtered in front of their face, became bums in the Bowery after they came to America. They just couldn't take going back to regular society. It was too much for them. There was one person that I have in mind specifically who was big Torah scholar, big Talmid Chacham. Anyway, Chassidishe Rebbe goes on the east side to the Bowery, and he's talking to this one and to that one. And this Yidel tells him, Rebbe, can I come to your house for Shabbos? He says, of course. And they come home, takes him into his house, gives him a shower, stunk terribly, gives him a change of clothes. Chassidishe Rebbe never sat down to the Tish Friday night to make Kiddush with his Chassidim until he learned the whole Orach Chaim HaKadosh on that week's Parsha. Which during the winter, when Shabbos is 4 o'clock, 4:30, no, nicht gefährlich, you know. But when Shabbos starts 8 o'clock or 8:30, and davening ends by 10, right. So the Tish could start 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning. That week had this drunkard sitting next to him, and he only wanted to sit next to the Rebbe. And the Chassidishe's children, who themselves were holy tzaddikim, didn't want him to because they knew how pure and holy the father was. You know, many great tzaddikim, since the neshamas were so pure and holy, the bodies were too. What I mean by that is they were very, what's called in Hebrew, mefunik. They were mefunakim. They were very particular. Couldn't take a drop of dirt. And without hurting anyone, you know, they were just sensitive people in every way. So the children didn't want to let this person, this Jew, sit next to their father because they knew he wouldn't be able to eat and it'll just be, and he wouldn't say a word. But this guy insisted, no, I have to sit next to the rabbi. When the father saw what was going on, he says, what's the problem? So they said, this man wants to sit next to you, father. He says, sure. He moves over, takes another chair, moves next to him. Anyway, the night went on, and Tish, Shabbos, after Shabbos, this person goes back to his place, probably to the Bowery, or not, I don't know. Next Friday night, the Rebbe again finishes studying his Orach Chaim HaKadosh, comes into the Tish, Chassidim are waiting, and where's my friend? He asks his children. Uh-oh. I said, where is my friend? They say, well, you know, no. We're not starting the Tish until he's here. My dear children, please go, get him, and bring him here at all costs. There was no questioning. Chassidishe Rebbe said something, there was no questioning, right? And he had wonderful special children. Themselves big tzaddikim. I knew all of them. They go to They go to the Bowery, and of course, there's not only one Jew there, there's many, and they're looking for this guy, and finally they come to him. They say, please, we beg you, it's 3 a.m. Our father didn't eat all day. Please come to the Tish this week. My father's waiting for you. He says, no, not coming again. Father's a wonderful person. The food was great. I finally had a bed to sleep on. But you guys were not nice to me. You didn't want to let me sit next to the rabbi. Please, we beg you. My father's not going to eat until you come. Well, after finally pestering him, he did them a favor. And they schlepped him back to the Tish, and the Rebbe was able to make Kiddush and eat first time in 24 hours. Along the same lines, sort of, Rabbi Henoch Cohen, another story, Rabbi Henoch Cohen, who was the director of Chinuch Atzmai back in the beginning of the creation of the State of Israel, told me the story himself. He was a young man, just gotten married, was learning in Lakewood by Baron Kotler's Chabacha, and his wife got very ill. He went to Rabbi Kotler, asked him what to do, and he told him what to do, and he said, but don't, it's supposed to be an operation, and he said, don't even think of doing the operation before going to the Rebbe. Who's the Rebbe? Rabbi Kotler. You're not a chassid. He says, you're right, but I'm a chassid of the Kapitchitz Rebbe. Knowing how special and loving he is, I consider him my Rebbe. Anyway, so he goes to the Kapitchitz Rebbe and he says, Rebbe, Sunday my wife's going into Beth Israel Hospital. She is going to have an operation, and Rabbi Kotler told me to ask you for a bracha. Took down her name and her mother's name, and he said, Hashem's going to help, everything should be okay. Please don't worry, because we have to have emunah and betachon. Thank God everything went all right. He brought his wife home from the hospital, same day, operation, same day they came home, which those days wasn't so common, probably wasn't, well, whatever. And everything's okay. 12 o'clock at night, Mordechai Fink, Kapitchitz Rebbe, rings his bell. He lived on 50th Avenue and 51st Street in Borough Park, in the building there. And he goes to answer the door. He says, what's wrong? Can I help you? He says, yes, you could help me. Is your wife okay? He says, yes. My father hasn't eaten all day. It's already 12 o'clock at night. He's been sitting with the Tillim crying to daven to Hashem that your wife should be well. Don't you think you should at least call him after everything was done and the operation was successful and everything's okay? Just tell him everything's okay. So he could eat breakfast, lunch, supper, something. Of course, he called up the Rebbe, or he went the next day and begged him forgiveness. Yes, yes. Our beautiful leaders are so special. Moshe Yadaber, the tzaddik, the Zohar says, there was one Moshe Rabbeinu, wrong. The tzaddikim of every generation, espashtusa the Moshe b'chol dara, are also Moshe Rabbeinu. More than that, the Zohar says, every Jew is Moshe Rabbeinu. Every Jew has a spark and a tzitza of Moshe Rabbeinu. Every man, woman, and child of Israel is connected to Moshe. So we'll go to the next story. And for now, we'll stop. We're going to have a separate section for the stories. So, speaking about Rabban Kotler, who learned to love and appreciate, and actually call himself a chassid of the Kapitchitz Rebbe. I heard the story from Rabbi Spitzer, who was a rabbi in Park, who just passed away a few years ago, Rabbi Avin Chaim Spitzer. He also taught at Yeshiva of Brooklyn. And the story went as follows. Rabbi Kotler insisted that the Kapitcher Rebbe join the Moyetzes Gedolei HaTorah of Agudas Yisrael of America, which was an organization, still is an organization, of the great scholars and rebbes of Klal Yisrael to make decisions for decisions that have to be made. And after he got to know Kapitcher Rebbe, he invited Kapitcher Rebbe to join this organization. Kapitcher Rebbe said, I can't join. I'm not a gadol. I'm not a Torah scholar. He's very humble. But Reb Aaron Kotler insisted he come to every meeting, and he would say after, I have to listen to Rabbi Kotler. Amunas Tzadikim, Amunas Chacham. So he believed in him because he was so great, and he believed in him so great. And reminds us of a Purim story, right? Mordechai had Amunas Tzadikim in Esther Hamalka, Chazal tell us. And Esther Hamalka had Amunas Tzadikim in Mordechai. And it's great. Two holy people married to each other. Anyway, so Reb Aaron Kotler had to come to a meeting of the Moyetzes Gedolei HaTorah in Manhattan. Being they lived in Lakewood, he asked one of his boys from the yeshiva, a 25-year-old, to drive him. When they came there, so like we said before, any decent human being, but especially Yid, know the importance of saying thank you and gratitude to someone that does you a favor. So Reb Aaron told this young man that as a thank you, I'll let you sit in on the meeting. Wow. And this young man, 25 years old, comes in and sees Reb Aaron Kotler, Reb Moshe Feinstein, Reb Yaakov Kamenetsky, the Minsky Rebbe, the old ones, the one who just passed away, his father, Reb Menachem Nuchem, Reb Nuchem Motche, the Yana Rebbe, Bluzhev Rebbe, holy people, and the Kapitcher Rebbe. He notices any question and any problem that comes up, and Reb Aaron Kotler was the MC, so to say, or the main one that everybody looked up to. And he says, before I answer, I want to ask Kapitcher Rebbe, Rebbe, what do you hold about this? And again it happens, and again it happens. This young man, 25 years old from Lakewood Yeshiva, wasn't so easy for him to see this. So on the way back, he says to Reb Aaron, Rosh Yeshiva, insinuating that he wasn't too happy about this Rosh Yeshiva. Did you become a chassid? What's this? What does the Rebbe think about this? What does the Rebbe hold? What's that all about? And Reb Aaron, as is known, when his forehead came together, when he knached his forehead, like they say, watch out, because he had something to say. And he's thinking, and he says to this young man, why is it that I talk so much about learning, the importance of learning, and especially my shiurim, Reb Aaron's lectures were like 3, 4, 5 hours straight. Too many people didn't understand it, even with preparing. People from my congregation know one person that did understand. And he says to this young man, I'll tell you why it's so important for me, the study of Torah and the hard work that I put into the lectures that I give. Because by studying Torah, the purpose of studying Torah is it cleanses you. Cleanses your neshama, cleanses your midas, your attributes, your character. It makes you a Yehudi Tahor, a cleansed Jew. This Yid, Reb Aaron, this Yid, Kapitcher Rebbe, he is a cleansed soul, a cleansed Jew. I may call him Rebbe. Zchus Yagan Aleinu. Zchus Avdelik Tzadikim and the great leaders should be with us always.